Welcome to the MINI Aceman. This is a brand new concept from MINI that is all electric, and it is also ushering in an entirely new design language for the brand. This is a brand new and really bold concept that MINI has created that's intended to convey a new start for the MINI brand as it starts to transition into the all-electric era. So what do we have here? What is this thing? How big is it? How small is it? What's inside? All these things are sort of floating around. Let's dive into it, and let's start with the design. What do we see here? So let's take a look. I'm Gabe from MotoringFile, of course, the largest MINI website in the world. And as always, we've got all the knowledge, all the data, everything you want to know. Let's get started. So diving right in, first and foremost, this is a radically different MINI than we've ever seen before. These sketches prove that out. This, of course, is a little wild, but you start to get a sense of what they're trying to do here. There is a simplicity to this design that we haven't seen before from MINI. Obviously, this is a sort of a crossover, kind of a butch-looking vehicle, all electric. It is something that we knew was coming. This is a car that is about the size of the original Countryman. So it's about 8 inches shorter than the forthcoming new Countryman, which in itself is a bit longer than the current one. So bear with me here. What that means is this really sits in the middle between the hatch and the Countryman. Consider it a high-riding 4-door hatch or 5-door hatch, depending on what market you're in, how you look at that. But this is a smaller version of what we see in the Countryman today. So look at this front. So there's clear lighting here that's interesting and different. The grille, yeah, it is translucent and it has lights behind it. Those lights are actually going to respond in different ways. So when you walk up to the car and have the fob in your pocket, it will sort of have a wave effect and kind of welcome you. You can program in different, of course, MINI doesn't talk about this, but we know this. You can program in different lighting effects. In this case, it's sort of a pseudo Union Jack. The headlights themselves, I'm 99% sure what we have here are concept headlights. These are not the final version, but the shape is. So it's really what's inside that is going to be different. And then where you see that red right there, that will likely, very, very likely, those will be air intakes. So that will likely not be there. The bottom is a air intake, and then otherwise you don't need a grille. This is a full electric vehicle designed on top of a skateboard chassis. Around back, same type of aesthetic here. Very rugged. It is a front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive vehicle, depending on how it's spec'd. And of course, what we have here is, it's a hatch. It's sort of that classic MINI hatch. Inside, things get funky. I mean, really funky. MINI has created something that is very minimal compared to what we've seen in the past. This means we have a single display in this vehicle. This display will carry over through all of the MINI family. In the small Chinese-made hatch and this vehicle, it will be a single display. There will be nothing else in front of the driver except for an optional heads-up display. Also here, you're going to see this in a bit, but there are toggles, there are switches. That is your drive selector. That means, PRND. There is some other sort of, start, stop, and some other things there that really simplify the whole experience. So this is a 5-seater, as we see. Very typical, expected in terms of the overall sort of interior volume. It's bigger than you think because this is, of course, an electric vehicle. So the cowl, sort of up in the area where the hood meets the glass, the windshield, that's pushed forward because there's no engine, of course, or no large engine. It's a small electric engine. Much simpler sort of packaging because it's a skateboard chassis as well. Batteries on the floor low. This should have a fantastic sort of low center of gravity feel that you just love in electric cars. Roof rack is funky. I don't know how else to say it. Union Jack inspired, and I'm not entirely sure how functional that is. And of course, you've got those lights again. These lights are programmable. A couple more shots. This is a pretty in early returns here. early look, this is a really attractive vehicle, and Mini has done some cool stuff, and it's really exciting to see where they're going. So some pieces in isolation. This is that dash. The dash is a fabric dash with an LCD behind it. Yep, you can actually change the color, the shape, or not the shape, but the color, the tone, the vibe of the entire interior because of it. The doors, these are actually resembling production, believe it or not. Materials will be different, but look for that as a production unit. Again, another shot of the interior. Almost looks like a rail system, which, as you know, for the original Countryman, that was part of that concept. I loved it. A lot of people did not, and I think that ultimately was sort of lost in translation, but the concept is great. Be interesting to see if this comes back. Note the seats. In the concept, there are no thigh bolsters, yet the upper part of the seat does look a little bit aggressive, like a sports seat. So here's fingers crossed that there's thigh bolsters, because that will be a big loss for us. Here's another look for him. Look at them. Funky graphics, fabric, textiles. Mini is doing away with leather and chrome. That's a big move for them, and you see what's possible when you do that. Now, this, of course, is insane. Don't look for this in production. Look for much more muted tones. Probably one or two kind of interesting, sort of out there options. So we're going to roll through a little bit. Again, full view. This is a 5-seater, and this is that Mini design team. This is who has brought this forward, and ultimately who's responsible for it. You'll also notice the width of the car. I mean, this is obviously a Mini, but Mini is not afraid to make these cars fairly wide for volume. Oliver Himmler is the head of Mini design, and his his ethos has really been form follows function in everything that Mini does. You see the various designers kind of playing with the different things that they've established. Here's a good shot of the interior. Now we're getting into actual photography. Some of those initial sketches, you see this angular, very geometric aesthetic that has been created. You take a look at some of the textiles here. Really interesting choice of colors. Not sure where this leads to in production. Yep, that's stitched. I mean, these are actually handmade in this concept. Here's the dash as well. And then finally getting into the actual car. This is, of course, how these concepts are made. Pretty cool stuff. Aceman. Kind of hard to say Aceman when you're so used to Paceman. So this is, of course, Oliver sitting with Adrian van Hooydonk, who is the head of all BMW Group design. He oversees everything. And here it is. So this is the actual car. This is the actual crossover. Yeah, those wheels are massive. They'll probably not be that big at launch. There's various things here that will change, but the key thing, and this is really important, this is the car. This is the shape. This is the size. This is it. Barring some lighting changes, some wheels being a little bit smaller, that trim may change a little bit where it says Mini, and of course that funky luggage rack. This is it, and that's pretty exciting because this is a really attractive vehicle. Only downside, big downside. This is like 3 minutes in now. It is almost 100% not coming to the United States. So not coming to the United States. Why? Well, this is a car that is not that much smaller than the forthcoming Mini Countryman. The Countryman will be a little bit more of a premium product. It will be available as an ICE or internal combustion engine and electric. It'll be made in Germany. Key there is Germany does not have a sort of an unusual tariff for vehicles. China, as of about 4 years ago or 3 years ago, has a 25% tariff on these type of vehicles. These vehicles have fairly razor-thin margins, especially in the lower end of them. It just doesn't make any sense. When you think about the Countryman coming and being a little bit bigger and also being designed this time around more for the American market, Mini USA looked at this. I'm just guessing, and I've also heard some clear indications from some sources there that the Countryman is where they want to put their weight behind. This really doesn't make a ton of sense in this market, at least not initially. So that's the early rumors. They're very, very strong rumors. I can almost assure you that's the case. Happy to be wrong on this, but that's what we're hearing. So that out of the way, this does give us a very clear indication of where Mini's moving. So the Countryman probably will look very, very similar to this, but larger. So keep that in mind as we roll through them. So this exterior is clean. It's minimal, still aggressive, of course, but it's got this new signature front end, still keeping that sort of typical Mini outline in the front, but very clean, very simple. There's no fake scoops. There's nothing that isn't real, which is frankly a kind of a nice change. The other thing that's interesting is these black plastic cladding around the wheels are not perfectly uniform. They kind of flare out at the back as well, which is also a new look. And you've got that rear end, which I think looks fantastic personally. You'll notice some of the really interesting color choices and the nuance there on the top of that rack as well. Let's dive inside. So this is where I think this is the most minimal aspect of this car. Again, textiles, seats, really interesting. Floating digital display. That is a production unit. It's OLED. It is powered by Android, not Android Auto, but it's powered by Android Automotive Services. What does that mean? So it's that sort of development layer and the sort of foundation of this experience. It allows Mini to have a lot of Google services and technology that it wouldn't normally have built in at the foundation. So, okay, what does that mean? Well, it means you're going to have Google Maps, most likely. You're going to have other Google services built in. Don't have to, you can turn them off. But that's something that for a lot of us who really find some of those Google services, as much as many of us use iPhones, I do, for sure. We love Google Maps. We love various aspects of what Google offers. This will be built in, which is really nice. It'll also of course, have Android Auto and CarPlay as built-in options. And it will have a entirely new UI, user interface, powering the entire thing. We have not seen that yet. This is purely designed for this concept. So what we're looking at here is purely conceptual. Steering wheel is actually the real steering wheel, except the materials around it are not real. So take away those materials. Let's pretend they're leather. No leather anymore, right? Let's pretend they're not leather. Let's pretend they're other things. It won't be that crazy, that funky, but this is the shape of what's to come. So this gives you a real look, a real view of the size of that OLED circular screen. The quality of it is amazing. I actually got a chance to see the Mini Urbanaut concept, which very sort of sneakily had this screen in it, the exact same screen. And the quality was fantastic. So refresh rates, color saturation, everything, just it's going to be amazing. The other thing that's really interesting is the simplicity of those toggles down below as well. Funky, cool, minimal. Like, to me, this represents the future of Mini in a really, really interesting, bold way. I love where they're headed. Now, sure, there's some weird stuff going on here. But take all that away and just imagine what this is with maybe some more subdued colors, which may be more appealing. It's pretty interesting. And that's not subdued, but you get the idea. Things just get more funky as you keep looking. So let's dive into the exterior of this car. This is the real thing in a real environment. And immediately you get this sort of the scope of the size. It's not massive. I mean, this is small. It's not overly tall. The shape of it, though, is really, really nice. It's more squat, less bulbous, less like sort of rounded, a little bit more aggressive, certainly more angular. High headlights. To me, again, love this look. Really, really interesting to see what they do with the hatch. And then in motion, you get a sense of just where this is going to take the Mini brand. And those wheel spats or sort of the wheel surrounds with that shape. Really, really interesting new look for Mini. Everybody's always happy in these. Am I Clearly they have to be, but it is pretty funny. That really interesting sort of support structure in the dash, seriously doubt we'll see that in that finish, but I've heard that Mini's actually going to be doing something pretty interesting there. So stay tuned to that. So that is the Mini Aceman. I mean, this is a brand new all-electric product made in China for export worldwide, most likely not coming to the United States. This is a concept. The final version will be basically what you see here. Different mirrors, different wheels, some slight differences in trim. Of course, colors are going to be different. Those headlights, the sort of matrix in them will probably not be there. But there's a lot here that's production. And it's pretty exciting. Look for this to debut likely in 2024. So backing up, that means next year we'll likely see the debut of the new hatch, also made in China. And we'll see the debut of the Countryman, made in Germany. And then likely in 24 as well, we'll see the debut of the new, well, this is where it gets kind of funny, the revised F56 ICE Mini Cooper and Cooper S. Yes, internal combustion is going to stick around. It's going to stick around for the American market, or I should say because of markets like America and others, probably into the early 30s. So we're going to see this aesthetic grafted onto those cars, which will be kind of interesting as well. So the key thing here is this is going to be Mini's new mid-range crossover, and this is our first look at the new Mini design language. A complete change, a radical change for the brand. And one, as I soak it in after just a couple hours, I gotta say, I really love. Go ahead and click subscribe, click like, leave comments, head over to MotoringFile, take a look at the very, very in-depth write-up that we created there. More photos, there's video, there's lots of stuff to take a look at. So this is just the start, and look for a lot more on MotoringFile.com.